The second part of our African journey brought us to Zimbabwe on September 1st. We started in Victoria Falls, the town where one of the largest waterfalls in the world is located. We arrived that evening just in time to meet our tour group and have dinner at the hotel. I tried one of the country's traditional meals for supper, which included warthog and a starchy. Our next day was rather rushed as we only had the morning to see the falls. We opted to take a helicopter tour which provided a great view of the falls. Victoria Falls is located on the Zambezi River, which divides Zimbabwe and Zambia. The falls are more than a kilometer wide and have a height of over 100 meters. The traditional name for the falls, Mosi Otanya, means the smoke that thunders, which is appropriate as the roar of the falls can be heard from about 40 kilometers away and the mist can be seen from about 50 kilometers. During floods, the water flow can reach 500,000 liters per minute, but we were there during the dry season. So as you can see, there are many areas where water was not flowing over the falls. The whole area has not had good rains in over 5 years, and the effects of climate change are obvious. After our flight, we were dropped off at the entrance to the falls park, and with little time, we ran down the paths to see the falls from the various lookouts. The vegetation near the falls is similar to a rainforest, and it certainly felt like one as we were soaked by the mist. Zimbabwe, formerly known as Southern Rhodesia, gained independence from the United Kingdom in 1980 and was ruled by President Robert Mugabe for decades. The country has one of the world's highest inflation and unemployment rates. In 2008, inflation was 231 million%. This made the country's currency worthless, and although the government recently mandated that only local currency be used, it is nearly impossible to get the currency. On our drive through Victoria Falls, we saw many long lineups outside of banks no matter what time of day. On our drive through the country, we passed many small villages, and often there would be a village water pump like you see these young boys using here. The ladies, and sometimes men, commonly carried items on their heads. This practice traditionally teaches young women self-confidence and is efficient as it leaves the hands free. When we stopped along the side of the road to look at this huge baobab tree, we were greeted by some curious locals. This friendly family with several children spoke to us. I was inspired by how joyful these people were, despite having no worldly possessions. Despite the harsh reality of their daily lives, they truly believe that through God all things are possible. We stopped at this garage twice for a washroom break on the way to and from Hwange. Both times the garage did not have running water, so the ladies were not allowed to use the toilet. That meant that some in our group had to go bushy. On the way to our lodge, we stopped at the Painted Dog Sanctuary just outside of Hwange National Park. This organization works to save the highly endangered species. Human causes such as snares, traffic accidents, and shootings are the reason why there are only about 7,000 of these wild dogs left on the entire continent. The center we visited provides education for school children, rehabilitation for injured dogs, and works to remove snares throughout the area. Note that the snares are built from copper telephone wire and are set by poachers to catch antelope, but the dogs often become the unintended victims. The 2 dogs pictured here experienced significant injury and live at the center as they would not be able to survive in the wild. Baboons were a common sight throughout the trip. They enjoy living close to humans as they like to find food and scraps that are left behind. They live in large troops, which we often saw along the road. lodge we stayed at in Zimbabwe was another tent-type structure with a thatched roof. These wildlife lodges are made so that they can be completely removed after a period of time without damaging the environment. You can see the solar panel water heater behind the structure. This tiny bush baby was on the rafters of the reception and dining area while we were eating dinner one evening. Outside of the lodge, there were plenty of animals to see: bushbuck, elephants, giraffe, impala, and baboons, to name a few. When we got up before dawn for our morning game drive, we were instructed to stay in our tents until the guide came by and knocked on our door to give us the okay, as there were no fences to keep the animals out of camp. They had recently found lions sleeping under one of the tents when they completed their morning rounds. Each morning and evening we went for a game drive. These photos were taken at dusk or slightly after. Here we were able to watch the sun set alongside the unforgettable African landscape. Our game drives took place just outside of and through Hwange National Park, the largest natural reserve in Zimbabwe. In winter, or the dry season, the leaves on the trees change color and often fall off due to the lack of water. This acacia tree is an easily distinguishable figure on the African landscape. The African elephant is the largest walking animal on Earth, and we were fortunate to see many elephants on our travels. Although the population of elephants is healthy in some areas, they are still threatened by poaching due to the growing demand of the ivory trade. These beautiful creatures are critical parts of the ecosystem. Many species are dependent on elephant dung. Up to 30% of tree species require elephants to help with dispersal and germination, while other animals often feed off of elements of the food. The giraffe is the tallest living terrestrial animal, and we were able to spot quite a few giraffes in Hwange. Giraffes are shy animals, and most that we saw were a distance away or hiding in the trees. There are several species of antelope living in Zimbabwe. Here we see a herd of impala. Although antelope are closely related to deer, the key difference is that they have horns, not antlers, which grow continuously and are never shed. The sable you see with one horn likely lost it in a fight, and it will not grow back. The kudu, with distinct curly horns, are one of the largest species of antelope. The steenbok, pictured here, are mainly solitary creatures. This steenbok is bearing its pupa. This is the only antelope to exhibit this behavior. We spotted these two parrots outside of the park's main office. There are numerous bird species in Zimbabwe, including this bee-eater. We were excited to see this southern yellow-billed hornbill. You may recognize them as Zazu from The Lion King. Every time we spotted a lizard or salamander, Darren was excited to try to get a photo of them. We were lucky to capture this one. These African tree squirrels were spotted outside of the reception building at the park. They were very similar in size and behavior to our red squirrels. This was the first time that we spotted warthogs. It is interesting to see the influence of American culture around the world, as even our guides refer to them as Pumbaa,
because the grass they recycle the nutrients. They move back from the drying stems and leaves and store the nutrients in the roots. So those animals they
One of the most amazing experiences of the whole trip was our evening stop at this watering hole. Here we saw what seemed like hundreds of elephants. As one herd of elephants would depart, another parade would arrive. It was remarkable to see these stunning creatures in their natural habitat. The watering hole was shared not only by the elephants, but giraffes and zebras also made an appearance. It was surprising to us how quiet these large animals are. Never again will I use the term loud as a herd of elephants, because the elephants were almost silent. Elephants grow to be about 11 feet tall at shoulder height and weigh about 6 tons. Here you see the bull elephant approaching. At this point, the guides ask people to move out of the way, as sometimes animals can be unpredictable. Zebras' unique stripe patterns serve to disperse the incoming heat as well as camouflage them from predators. Each animal's coat pattern is unique. The females have a hierarchy and will often walk in line in order in which they join the herd. This brings us to the end of the second leg of our journey. Here we enjoyed the sunset over the savannah. Stay tuned for part 3 of our adventure as we travel to Botswana and visit the Chobe River and the Okavango Delta.